So let's look at these two issues of blame. So what we normally do with blame is we blame everybody else but ourselves. Isn't that the way it works? When we have something negative happen to us, you know, it's somebody else's problem, right? So you go home and your flat happens to be robbed. Who do you blame? Who would you blame? The thief. The thief. Who else would you blame? Maybe the police. Right. You might blame them. You might blame the law. And if he ever gets to a judge, you might blame the judge that he didn't get the right sentence. And, you know, like, why do we blame all of these different people? Well, the answer is quite simple. Well, no, I feel we blame them because they did it. They did it. They took the action. Like the thief stole your gear, didn't he? So you feel justified blaming him, don't you? Right? And so we have a tendency to go ahead and blame people. We even blame people who didn't have a part of the whole thing. Like the judge who sentenced the thief, he didn't steal your furniture or he didn't steal from your flat. But we still, if we feel the judge's sentence is not strong enough, then we blame him too, even though he wasn't involved in the original theft. Right? So we have a tendency with blame to sometimes blame because the person actually did it, and sometimes we blame just because we can. And there's no rhyme or reason as to who we blame sometimes, as to who's actually responsible. The issue of responsibility is different to blame. Right. Is the thief responsible for thieving from you? Yes, of course. So the thief is responsible. He is the person who made the choice to act unlovingly and take from you. But why did he take from you and not your next door neighbour? There's got to be something going on there, doesn't there? Here, how many people live in Gothenburg? 400,000. Okay. Around about. This thief had a choice of 400,000 people, and he chose you. There's got to be a reason. You must have invited him somehow, right? You must have invited him somehow. There's got to be something going on in the soul of you that needs this event to be confronted with a certain truth. Right? And it could be just that you have a lot of grief about things being taken from you that you're not experiencing. And how is this grief going to come out of you if you're unwilling to connect to it? The only way it's going to come out of you is by an event being created where you're triggered into grief, and then maybe you'll choose to feel your grief now instead of trying to avoid it all the time. That could be just a simple answer to that event as to why that event occurred. Every single event has a cause. Now let's look at the issues of blame, responsibility and cause, because these are separate issues. Right? And if we could say blame is a very emotional thing to do, isn't it? To blame. You know, usually it involves the emotion of anger, frustration, annoyance, or other such emotions that are all linked to anger or rage. So blame is an emotional process, and blame often is not accurately assigned. In other words, we often blame people when they're not really to blame. Right? Because we can get away with it. We can get away with blaming that person without the person hurting us or judging us or punishing us some way. Oftentimes we blame the people who are easy to blame. Because if we blame the actual person, they might hurt us the more. And so what we do is we choose somebody who won't hurt us more, and then we blame them instead. We have a lot of emotional reasons why we choose blame, and who we choose to blame is very much driven by our own emotional condition of fear, how much fear we're in. But there is a person responsible for any action that they took that is negative, that is out of harmony with love. And also, you're also responsible for every loving action you took. Right? So every loving action you took in the course of a day, you're totally responsible for. It's great. And every unloving action you took in the course of a day, you're also totally responsible for, and that's great too. Because this is how the law works against the person who, or with the person who is responsible. But the cause of you doing something is very different from taking responsibility for it. So why did the thief steal from your house? There must be an emotional thing going on inside of him that would cause him to make such a choice. Can you see that? And so therefore, there's got to be a cause inside of him that caused him to decide to go and thieve somebody's house. But the fact that he chose your house means there has to be a cause inside of you that caused him to choose your house and not some other of the 400,000 people homes that he could have chosen. Can you see that? So he is responsible for the choice to go and thieve, and there is a cause inside of him that caused him to exercise his will to thieve. But the fact that he chose your house to do it involves a cause inside of your own soul that caused him to be attracted to your house rather than your next door neighbour's house. That's how fine, and it's even much finer than that, the law of attraction.